President, delegates, sisters and brothers, I'd like to welcome you to this morning's session and to discussion on peace and the mission to Palestine and Israel. But let me first thank Rainer for his speech and for his engagement with us. We have a good and fruitful relationship, and we try to play our bit and raise our voice in the international campaign for the abolition of nuclear weapons. Thank you very much, Rainer. We made a promise in Nagasaki that we would keep that flame of a nuclear-free world very much in focus. And I made a promise to the mayor, I made a promise to the governor of the prefecture, and as a result of those promises, I became an official peace ambassador for Nagasaki. And what we have done is to continue the relationship with the peace messengers. This is ongoing, and each year we receive them at the UNI Global Union office. We meet new generations of teenage boys and girls for a conversation and about the role of the union movement in the process for peace. I've learned many things from this conference, this great Congress, and one of them is that the most powerful speakers have been the gentlest in their mode of delivery. I remember Kati Kathrada at our opening, and yesterday Emma speaking quietly, with dignity, but with great force. And this is a great lesson for me because my normal habit is to go slightly berserk at any time I am in front of a microphone. So therefore, I thank Kati and Emma for this message, and also like to say that I shall overcome. I have been a victim of 9 days of air conditioning, and I understand that many of you have done likewise. I am doing perfectly fine. It's just, and I will overcome this struggle about the air conditioning in this room and in the hotel these next 2 days. Friends, there are few issues able to divide a Congress, hall, a nation, or indeed an entire planet like the so-called intractable war in the Middle East. Two sides, 3,000 years of history, resolute in their conviction that the holy ground on which they stand should form the basis of a nation-state in the ancestral home of their forefathers. War after war, rocket after rocket, life after life. This is a conflict that means not only a daily miserable existence for millions of Palestinians, but a deep and continuing insecurity for Israelis. A perilous security threat to the rest of the Middle East and the wider world. I want to talk very briefly about this conflict, the forces driving it, and how, despite the world telling us it isn't so, we can end it. This summer's horrific events in Gaza, the fourth war in Gaza in recent years, a cycle of action, reaction, a tense tightrope of action, reprisal, suppression. As the International Labour Office told us, the whole place is a tinderbox. We see fights over religious sites, murder in a synagogue, grinding unemployment with no hope for the youth of Gaza in their economic circumstances. We discovered a new term, the undevelopment of a nation. Since we were there, new elections have been called in Israel. Just prior to arriving there, we had a new agreement between Hamas and the PLO. In the state of this tinderbox, this tension, this conflict, this war after war, it would be understandable, perhaps, to lose hope for a two-state solution. It is the view of the mission that we must not give up hope and campaign with renewed vigor for a two-state solution. We must not give up this hope. It will take brave leadership from both sides of the separation barrier to bring about the agreement. But I am resolute in my belief, as the mission members were also, that it will come about because, sisters and brothers, it must. The truth is that the core issues that need to be resolved, as we learned when we were there 4 years ago and this time, the key issues to be resolved in a peace agreement are largely acknowledged. Recognition of Israel, right to exist, Israel's security, a Palestinian democratic independent state, two nations living side by side, agreements about borders, settlements, transfer of lands, the right of return of refugees. These issues are publicly discussed practically on a daily basis. These are the negotiating parameters that everyone is aware of. What I think is now needed is true action by normal, everyday people around the world in a united effort to break down the barriers and blockades so that those leaders can look at each other squarely in the eye and make that final commitment. We asked a worker, if you were to talk to the leaders of both sides, what would you say? And he said to us, please put the negotiators in a room and don't let them come out until they've reached a peace settlement. The world, I believe, wants negotiations. They want peace negotiations to take place. In October, we led a UNI delegation to Palestine and Israel. Frankly, I wasn't sure if this mission would take place. We arrived just weeks after the Gaza ceasefire with open ears and open minds. There was a clear and tangible sense of despair from both sides at a perceived lack of any meaningful road to peace. As I stand, there are no negotiations for peace. With the help of the ILO, we went from hurried meeting to hurried meeting. We met the United Nations, we met the relief agencies, we met Palestinian NGOs, we met Israeli NGOs, we met the PLO, we met with the negotiators from Camp David through to the Oslo Accords. We met with the Israeli Labour Party, and of course, we met with our affiliates from Israel and Palestine. We were in Nablus and Ramallah, the West Bank, and in Tel Aviv. I must say, sisters and brothers, we had intense discussions. A bearing of souls. Understand our pleas, was said. Understand our fears, said another. Tears, anger, and a dying of the candle of hope. For some of our delegation, it was a first visit to the region. They witnessed the separation barrier. They witnessed the illegal Israeli settlements and Israeli industries spreading through the West Bank. We met relief groups delivering life-saving medical aid to the people of Gaza. We met with citizens of southern Israel, themselves subject to rocket attacks from Gaza. Communities where bomb shelters are never out of sight and where Israeli children play in schoolyards entirely covered by concrete protective barriers. There is a cry for justice And we say that justice will only come when these peace negotiations are put in place and concluded. The suffering of the people of Gaza this summer can never be overstated. 2,160 Palestinians killed, 83% of them civilians, 85% of them killed in their own homes, 580 children, over 100 elderly people, 91 families entirely wiped out. 110,000 people remain homeless to this day. Reconstruction and relief in Gaza must work, and we must rebuild Gaza again. Its economy is shot to pieces. A new generation of working age who cannot find work. 2 million people enclosed and blockaded in this narrow strip of land. To the delegation, it is the slow, pervasive spread of illegal Israeli settlements throughout Jerusalem and the occupied West Bank that represents a critical and lasting barrier to peace. Inch by inch, Palestinian land, livelihoods, and heritage are being taken in a clear violation of international law. Communities are being fractured, entire populations being displaced, and the vital link between Jerusalem and the West Bank is vanishing. A proud Palestinian people are becoming jobless, second-class citizens. And how can we expect to see peace when Palestinians are being subject to such suppression? It is for this reason that the mission believes it right to support actions which impede the expansion of illegal settlements for homes and for businesses. This action is intended at the economic activity and the constructions of home in what we consider and the world considers illegal settlements. It is a barrier to peace. Those barriers also include the insecurity of Israeli citizens, which we witnessed. We condemn entirely any act of terror on civilians. We are entirely committed as UNI Global Union to the establishment of a fair, lasting, and complete peace in the Middle East. This must include the universal recognition of Israel's right to exist in conditions of security alongside an independent and viable Palestinian state. I urge you all to become engaged, to support the peace process, to bring about an end to the occupation, and to safeguard the human rights of all Palestinians and indeed Israelis, at a time when the peace movement in Israel itself is much marginalized and threatened. We as UNI Global Union will continue our engagement, and we will continue to work with our affiliated organizations in Palestine and Israel. We had excellent conversations with the PGFTU at their headquarters. We have existing affiliates. They are with us in the room today, and we wish them all a very warm welcome. We are interested in working with them to build their capacity. It is a very sincere and meaningful relationship. We sit together, we talk together, and our endeavor and aim is to build their own capacity, as is the entire global union movement's responsibility in the most difficult of situations. The Palestinian trade unions have won their minimum wage struggle, and they are now in discussions about putting in for the first time a social safety net in the area. We also, it's a milestone for them. Please applaud. They'd be pleased to hear it. We have our affiliated unions in a Histadrut which is being remodeled, I would say, and have discovered the organizing message. They have collective bargaining agreements, and they also have very, very significant fights with this government. On the day that the mission was there, Joe de Bruyn, Anne Celine, Bon Skulu, Mike Sunderland from our office, Christy and myself there were 7 different strikes taking place in the public sector, in the ministries of transport and justice, and indeed in the post office. The Histadrut has a significant new organizing plan. Their call is for us to try and do our best to build a dialogue between the PGFTU unions and the Histadrut in the future. And you will see from the new executive that from that zone we will have a member from Israel on our executive, and for the very first time, a member of our world executive from Palestine. In conclusion, in the course of history, it is the ordinary citizens of your membership and on the ground in that region that will and must spark the movements for change. Let's not forget where we are gathered today, on the site of a great triumph of people, rising up against hatred, against division, and against injustice. Indeed, it was Nelson Mandela himself who said, and I think we all share this sentiment, "We know too well," his quote, "we know too well that our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinians." Let us help. You have a motion before you. This was a deeply serious process. This was not a marginal discussion in the Resolutions Committee. You will see from the beginning of this process, we had 2 opposed motions. Those original motions have been withdrawn. We now have a composite motion. I know it may be too far for some. I am confident, and I know it's too little for others. My wish is that we adopt this resolution. And in doing so, I say that we will continue our efforts at UNI Global Union to be active on the ground and to continue to work with our global trade union family at the ITUC in this pursuit of peace to this intractable war. Thank you.